Hello, everyone, and welcome on into the Betting Pros podcast. I'm your host, Thomas Viola, and it is time for week 5 of the NFL season. So we're going to be talking about the slate, picking out our favorite games today. And to help us do that, of course, as always, the Oracle himself, Matt Freedman, joins us. And today we are joined by a very special guest, Ben Brown, head of predictive analysis at PFF, joins the show. Ben, thank you so much for coming on today. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, guys. I enjoy, the Betting Pros content podcast. So definitely appreciate you guys having me on to chat up a little sports betting action for week 5. So appreciate you guys having me here.
I'm excited. We're going to have plenty of games to get to here. We're going to have some interesting disagreements, some interesting agreements, and some good takes. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about what it is that you do. What is the day in the life of someone running predictive analysis here, especially for a group like PFF?
Yeah, it is. I would say every single day is different. Of course, we have, off season and in season. I do think probably changes, dramatically for you guys as well. But a lot of like our research type projects, tools that we're trying to build, everything else kind of happens in the off season. And then we basically, kind of try and keep the lights on. So like every Monday morning, I'll wake up. We have like this, what we call like a metrics package, which essentially takes all of PFF data, and kind of mushes it together and does a lot of our output top-down models that we kind of use in a lot of our prediction-based models. So things like, PFF Greenline, NCAA Greenline, or Player Props tool. We train all those models on the latest data every single week, and then kind of have a prediction basis for when bets and player props and all these other sorts of things kind of come in. So that's in season is much more reaction. I do write some content as well, do podcasts. But then the off season is honestly the time that I enjoy, and it's when we get to kind of innovate, look at new product offerings and those sorts of things, see what the market is directionally moving like to actually try and make and improve our processes and our predictions. So I like that we have come up with this sort of like play-by-play simulation that we don't fully have 100% out there for public-facing folks, but I am doing a lot of like accuracy type metrics on that through the first 4 weeks of the season, at least seeing like how close we are to betting market expectation, how close we are to results, and how well we're actually performing in some back testing characteristics for that particular model that we're kind of trying to bring to the public. So it's changing every single day. It's very fast paced, but I enjoy it and I love it. And I obviously love to be involved in the sports betting community. I do think that it's exactly where I do and want to be and belong. So it's fun, that's for sure.
Now, we certainly do know that there are so many practical applications for sports bettors who want to be able to use PFF data when it comes to building their own models out. And there was that whole Twitter kerfuffle a week or so ago where with the accusation, I don't remember who it was that was making it, but someone talking about how agents will pay for PFF grades. Now, we're not going to talk about that because obviously it's BS. What I want to talk to you about with it is the fact that teams do pay for PFF information and data. What can you tell us anything about some of the ways that NFL teams are using what you guys do and using these models in their evaluation of players?
Yeah. And I'm totally fine speaking to it. It was Jason Kelsey and the Travis Kelsey podcast. And it was something to do with, agents, paying PFF in order to kind of boost their guys' grade. And, it's obviously like, that's just not how the process would ever work or anything like that. But we do have kind of separate business units now. So I am very much on the consumer side of PFF, the public facing, front facing, the website and everything else. And then we have a soccer vertical as well, where we're kind of trying to do some of these advanced stats, data gathering, the play-by-play type data for clubs, specifically in like the Premier League, but also the MLS. And then we have like this B2B side of PFF, and they are very much focused on, helping NFL teams make correct decisions in basically every facet that we can possibly think of. So we have, a product called Ultimate, which, is like a kind of behind the scenes way of querying and looking up various PFF type stats. And then we also have what's called this like IQ component of it, which is specific to teams. It does a lot of things with our PFF WAR metric and kind of trying to understand, what is the best way for teams to allocate their salary dollars correctly, to what positions, what guys can kind of maybe take on similar approaches from a team building perspective. If they do lose one guy in free agency, maybe who would be somebody that can at least fill that role. What should his actual cost be? So we do have, I think at least some sort of contract with all 32 NFL teams. A lot of the value I think we provide now is especially at the college football level, with teams specifically. They just don't, at the NCAA level, they just don't have, I would say in some of the ways, the resources, or there's just probably not enough data science type people to really build out, the analytics components for every single NCAA team. So I think we get, a lot of those teams that maybe then don't really need to have a really strong analytics staff or multiple staff people. They can just go in, use, the PFF Ultimate information, use the IQ information, kind of try and look at some similarities between players for things that they, have available in like the transfer portal and everything else. And that is kind of, definitely probably, I don't know if it's the bigger revenue driver for PFF, but it's definitely the spot where, that was kind of where we first started off, as far as a focus, and it is very much the focus of that specific B2B side still, which I have no real a part in whatsoever. I actually haven't really during my entire time at PFF, but it definitely is like an interesting component of the overall structure in which we work under.
Ben, you mentioned earlier PFF Green Line, and we're going to talk about some of these Week 5 games in just a little bit. But my question is, when PFF Green Line is wrong, is it your fault? Is it George Chahuri? I'm trying to figure out who to blame. Kevin Cole, I'm sure could take some of the blame too. But what goes into some of the projections that you guys come up with for games?
Yeah, definitely, and it is a great question. I think at this time, I would unfortunately be the most responsible for every output that Green Line has, which I know you guys both face this as well, but it is, I would say, like, I bet a certain amount of dollars on every single bet that I make throughout the week. I care so much more about like our model predictions and my front facing content to do well, more so than any dollar amount that I bet on the actual games, because like it's more so like I don't know what the exact word, I'm kind of losing it, but it's like it's very much like who you are in a way are your picks, and it's kind of tough to separate. But going back to the initial question, like we very much have PFF focused play-by-play type grades folded in. I know this is probably another sensitive area that PFF has dealt with this year, but like specifically our 0 to 100 grades and how we kind of transform that play-by-play data to this 0 to 100 scale every single week can occasionally be a little bit off from like the public perception or whatever. But we take certain ways of adjusting for like context, adjusting for opponent strength and everything else, and we arrive at kind of a unique view of every single facet that an NFL team has. We fold that in. We fold in various like rest considerations, some overall team strength type metrics as well. And then, a few other factors, coaching sort of situations, how well that coach has been performing previously. We do fold in, some continuity aspects as far as, is it a new head coach? Is it a new offensive coordinator? What is the offensive line situation like, and all those things? So we kind of try and take that all together and then, essentially do a prediction for how well that's going to perform against, the spread total and money line. And we do, do a little bit of regression to the market once we actually have those numbers, just to kind of, align everything together. But that's our current approach from a Green Line perspective, is kind of taking that, top down method and applying a lot of the things that we think are at least valuable and are helpful in kind of like predicting where the spread should actually be. So that's generally the approach. We haven't, it's been okay. I think we do better at a college level for sure, but that is, one of the reasons why we are continuing to try to develop new products that are going to be, more successful at predicting just how these games are actually going to play out.
Now, guys, let's head on into some NFL games and actually predict how some of them are going to play out for this weekend. And before we do that, want to remind you real quick, you can head on over to BetMGM right now, betmgm.com. Sign up for an account today to make your bets. And your first bet, if you use the promo code BettingPros, you'll get a $1,000 risk-free bet to get yourself started off. And Matt, if you wanted to enter the promo code BettingPros and have a $1,000 risk-free bet, would you be using it on your first game here? And that is the Washington Commanders getting 2.5. Although really now our friends at BetMGM have this game down to 1.5. You can still find a 2.5 somewhere if you like the Commanders side of this. But the Titans on the road here laying 1.5 points right now. What are you thinking in this one, Matt?
Yeah, it's a disgusting game. I first bet this at +3. Shout out me with the sweet closing line value.
Guaranteed Titans are winning now.
Yeah, no, I know. Guaranteed they're winning anyway. This is such a disgusting bet to make. But I do have this. Just based on my numbers, I do have this at 0.25. And so for the Commanders to be getting 2.5, you can still get the 2.5 at FanDuel, 1.5 everywhere else. For them still to be getting that, I think there's value there. And, if you look at some of the trends, Mike Vrabel as a head coach, 15, 21-1 against the spread as a favorite, 9-14 against the spread following multiple wins in a row. And the Commanders, I think they are in a generally good spot in that home underdogs are 82, 47-7 against the spread off of a 3-game losing streak. And the teams that happen to go 1-3 to open the year, who are home underdogs in week 5, they are 16-10-1 against the spread. But, looking at kind of the big picture matchups for this game, I think it comes down to the Commanders' defensive line against the Titans' offensive line. And even though the Commanders haven't had edge Chase Young, who I think, even with the injuries, will still end up being a very good addition to this team when he comes back. The Commanders' defense is open this season. They're number 9 in adjusted sack rate, and they are top 8 in every key rushing efficiency metric: rush EPA, rush success rate, rush DVOA, adjusted line yards. They're top 8 in all of them. And you compare that to the Titans' offense, which is not even average in adjusted sack rate or any rushing efficiency metric. And in the Fantasy Pros unit power rankings, we see the Commanders' defensive line as having a significant edge over the Titans' offensive line. We have this defensive line at number 14. That feels, honestly, I think that's a little bit low, but I think that's fine. Like, that's within the range. We have the Titans' offensive line at number 27. They are dealing with significant injuries. And, for I think for the Titans, you could have Ryan Tannehill under pressure for a lot of the game. Derrick Henry, I think he could struggle to find open running lanes just because of the inefficiency of that offensive line. So, and in the preseason market, this was Commanders favored by 0.5 point. And my projection is still pretty close to that. I don't think they should be favored, but I don't think they should be close to a field goal in terms of being an underdog here. So I do see value on this, even though it's a disgusting bet. I freely admit that.
Well, I mean, that's your favorite kind of game, is the wet blanket, disgusting kind of game. So, of course, this is what you're thinking. Ben, are you with Matt, or are you in some disagreement here?
I mean, I'm a lot more convinced of Washington's side now that I listened to Matt, but I have been painfully betting Washington the past 2 weeks, kind of after their week 1 impressive performance. And I promised myself this was at least one spot where I could knock it on Washington's side. I mean, I definitely agree with Matt. From PFF's perspective, we have Tennessee with the 29th best pass blocking grade to start this season. Washington's 8th overall in our pressure rate percentage per dropback. So, and that specific matchup is going to be kind of deciding the game. Now, the other side of the coin that I kind of see is Tennessee's been really good from an EPA perspective when they've had scripted plays kind of to start the game. They've got off to really good starting points. So I do expect them to potentially be playing from ahead here. I'm hoping for, an early touchdown type situation. And if that happens, I do think they could ride Derrick Henry to the point where they are going to get this victory and maybe cover the spread. But I'm with Matt. I think, the the +3 for Washington was definitely the correct price. I do think moving under a field goal differential, I probably still lean at Tennessee's side. I would like to see, the injury situation with Washington wide receivers. I think Jahan Dotson's probably on the wrong side of questionable right now. It sounds like Curtis Samuel's probably going to be on the right side of questionable. So I do think if one of them is able to go, that obviously helps a little bit. But if both those guys are out, I think it's going to be, it could be a pretty convincing win for Tennessee. So I'm either avoiding it or riding with Tennessee on this one. So this will be the only time I go opposite Matt, though. I promise you guys that.
Above 3.5, I'm with you. Then I'm not looking to lay Tennessee 3.5, but now that it's down to 1.5, and if I can continue to drop here, obviously we've already hit past that. We've already crossed the 3. We're good for me. As Kelly Stewart said on the show, quoting Todd Furman a few weeks ago, you don't get rich laying points on the road, but I think I have to lay 1.5 here. I mean, the Massey Peabody ratings have Tennessee a full 6 points better than Washington here, 9th versus 29th in their ratings for the season. I think this is just a case of good football, bad football, and Carson Wentz and calculated risk taker Ron are still bad football. And I think the Titans can at least have Derrick Henry, but you also just have a better team overall. I don't have much faith in the Commanders at this point in the season. 1.5 is the right price for me to take the Titans here, guys. But the next game up, this one is probably my favorite game of the week here. The Jets are taking on the Dolphins, and Teddy Bridgewater filling in for Tua Tagovailoa at quarterback here. The Jets, of course, coming off the win over Kenny Pickett and the Steelers last week. They go home now, and I feel like this is the second time in a row that we've seen this now, where the Jets get a good win on the road at the last minute. Now they come home, and the Dolphins with Teddy B are laying 3 to 3.5, depending on where you look. BetMGM has it at 3 right now. Especially now that I don't have to pay the hook on it. Give me the Dolphins all the way here. I'm a Jets fan. This is a Jets disappointment spot. Always bet against 2 good things happening to the Jets in a row. What do you think in this one, Ben?
Yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. I think, Teddy's been a little bit of a cover machine, I would say, throughout his entire career. So I love backing him, especially, on the road. I do think that it's not going to be as bad of a drop off from what the betting market's currently projected, going from Tua to Teddy Bridgewater at quarterback. I think a lot of the early season success that Tua saw was kind of because, Mike McDaniel was definitely pushing a lot of the right buttons. I do think, with the 10 days of preparation, Teddy is going to be in a very similar spot to that. The preseason number I want to say was at +3.5, which is basically where we're at now. I think if you were on the look ahead line last week, that was all the way up to -6.5. So I do think, moving from 6.5 back all the way down to where we were at in the preseason is a pretty drastic overemphasizing of, both the Tua injury and what the New York Jets put forth last week. So I'm with you. I think, anytime you can bet the second time for, the Jets to potentially fumble the bag a little bit there, like you mentioned, I do think is probably the correct bet. So I'm on Miami here. And if I can get -3, all the better, I would say, for sure.
I do also like the over in this one. 46 points feels a little low to me because the Jets with Zach Wilson can actually kind of move the football. His mobility disguises the fact that this offensive line is about 1 injury away from calling me up and asking me to play left tackle. Matt, what do you think here?
I would like to. So I'll say I have this exactly at 3. But I will say I know that what's going into my numbers here might be wrong in that my assumption, and this is where I could be very wrong. My assumption is that Tua is 1.5 points better than Teddy Bridgewater. But I don't know if I actually believe that. And that's not to take anything away from Tua, who's looked really good this year. But he's had the weapons around him. I think Mike McDaniel has used him in a really intelligent way. And to Ben's point, with the Dolphins coming off of Thursday Night Football, they have extra time. And, they've known this whole time that Teddy Bridgewater was going to be the starter. And so what they have done for Tua, I think they can kind of adapt for Teddy. And so I feel I am probably discounting too much with the drop from Tua to Teddy. But Ben, I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit more about how you see that gap, exactly what you think that gap might be.
Yeah, it's a good question because I do think it very much depends on where you have Tua rated or whatever. Right? I think from our perspective, we have him right around three points basically. If you were kind of looking at like a spread differential drop off, but I also think Teddy Bridgewater is probably the best backup quarterback in the NFL. If he's not, he's really close to it. Has been successful, kind of stepping into that role in previous situations. So I really, put it more closer to like a point and a half differential between those two guys. I think that is basically what you mentioned. But moving between or dropping 2-3, I think has a much higher probability of even landing on that outcome. And I do think it's worth a lot more than just saying like it's a point and a half differential between these two teams. So I think, or between these two quarterbacks. So I think getting down to 3 is more than enough to kind of say Teddy can definitely handle this in this particular spot, I would say.
Take the Dolphins here. Just trust me on this. I've seen this movie way too many times. Take the Dolphins. That's my favorite play of the week. Matt, you're going with one that there are so many different things that I'm thinking about in this game here. So I'm eager to hear your thoughts on Detroit versus New England. Is it going to be Zappy hour again here? This Detroit defense is bad, but they are getting 3 points here in this spot. This line's still, 3.5, depending on where you look. BetMGM has 3.5. Are you going with Detroit in this one, or are you going with the Patriots and their quarterback that yet to be named here?
Yeah, I'm going with Detroit, and I mean 3.5 feels like such a great number to be able to get in this spot. Dan Campbell, just perpetual underdog, 14-6 against the spread as an underdog, and road dogs off a loss since 2018. And I'll just say the reason why I'm picking 2018 is because that's when PASPA was pulled back. So I feel like that's when you started seeing just more dumb money, for lack of a better way of putting it, entering the sports betting market. So like, what is the squarest thing that someone could do? They could bet on someone at home. They could bet on a favorite. And like they could bet against a team that was coming off of a loss. So if you look at road underdogs off of a loss, they're 179, 140, and 10 against the spread since 2018. And so that's a pretty large sample. And so that's something going towards the Lions in this spot. In home favorites of no more with a spread of no more than -3, 421, 471, and 50 against the spread. So the bigger picture trends are kind of pointing in opposite directions for these two teams and pointing towards the Lions. And then you take into account the fact that we really don't know who is starting for the Patriots in this spot. I do not think it is Mac Jones, even though he has been practicing on a limited basis. The severity of the injury that he suffered in week 3, the reporting was that expectations were for him to be sidelined multiple weeks. I'm very skeptical he starts in this spot. So that goes to back up Brian Hoyer, who was concussed. So maybe he's able to start. Quarterbacks, a week is within the time frame of when it's realistic to think that a guy has a real chance to come back, but maybe not. You never know with concussions. Hoyer, I think, is as bad as he might be in reality. He's still like an NFL veteran who knows the system. Zappy, maybe. I mean, he feels like Mike White, except without the game of sexiness to make you think he actually might be something. So I am very skeptical of whatever is happening with the quarterback situation for the Patriots. And then just big picture, stepping away from that, this Lions rush offense against the Patriots rush defense, I think is going to just destroy. Even though there's no, number one running back, DeAndre Swift, I still think that they're going to run the ball really well. The Patriots defense ranks number 31 in both rush DVOA and rush success rate. And you have center Frank Ragnow. He's dealing with a foot injury, but I'm not really worried about that. He didn't practice yesterday, but that's kind of keeping in pattern with his practice habits from last week when he played and wasn't at all on the injury report. So I'm not worried about him. You got left guard Jonah Jackson, who's dealing with a finger injury, but he returned to practice on Wednesday, which like is a positive development. So he's got a shot to play this week. And then on the other side, you have the Patriots. Last week, they were without defensive tackle Lawrence Guy, who was dealing with a shoulder injury. He's one of their main interior run stoppers. He didn't practice at all last week. He didn't practice on Wednesday. So I'm kind of skeptical that he's playing. And in our Fantasy Pros unit power rankings, the Lions offensive line has a massive edge over the Patriots defensive line. We have them ranked number 3, the Patriots defensive line at number 26. So significant edge. And I think with that, we're going to see the Lions just push the Patriots around and control the ball with their ground attack. And I think that keeps this game close. This number was Lions +1 in the look ahead market. That's where I have it projected now. Maybe the market believes with the move from +1 to +3, +3.5, maybe the market believes that Mac Jones actually has a real shot to play this week. That to me is like the only explanation for why this line has moved to 2.5 points in the past week. But I'm skeptical that Mac Jones plays. So I am very happy to be taking the 3.5 currently out there.
I'm looking around right here for some injury updates. Mac Jones was on the practice field listed as a limited participant. Hoyer definitely still in concussion protocol. I think tomorrow will be the day where we really figure it out and see what's going to happen here. I am, of course, always looking to the over in a Lions game now because you combine their ability to play offense with their complete lack of ability to play defense. I mean, you turned a game with the Seattle Seahawks into a shootout. You're not stopping anybody right now. But Ben, what are you thinking on this one?
Yeah, I'm definitely in agreement with Matt. I think, the line movement specifically just like doesn't add up whatsoever right now, both because, it's very much in question whether Mac Jones is going to play, but also, kind of what we just talked about with Tua and Teddy, right? Like we don't, from PFF's perspective, we don't really, think Mac Jones is all that much better than Brian Hoyer. So for him to be worth, a full 3 points while also moving through, the most important number that is there in betting on football and 3 actually, like it just seems like a lot. The injury situation for Detroit specifically is, I would say, a little concerning. It sounds like DeAndre Swift, like you said, on the questionable side of doubtful. If Amon-Ra St. Brown is back in, I think that's a pretty big boon to a Detroit passing offense that has been much better than expected.
I will cut you off real quick. I don't think that he's playing this week.
Is he not playing? Okay.
Today.
I doubt he plays.
Yeah. So he's questionable. And then, Josh Reynolds, I think, is also up on the injury report. He's another guy that I think is also, borderline what's going to happen with him as well. So I am concerned about Detroit, but I think the weakness from Detroit's defense, especially, is it doesn't really play into the strengths of the Patriots offense, especially with Brian Hoyer at quarterback, right? Like he's not going to be able to, beat even the worst coverage unit in the NFL deep downfield consistently. We might see 1 or 2 lucky plays, but I don't firmly really believe in the Patriots pass catching unit to kind of make those contested throws or contested catches downfield. So I'm concerned about that as well. So I think, +3.5, even with, Detroit's skill position, injury situation, I still think they're definitely the correct side here.
I'm just excited that for the first time since 200 BC, people might actually be afraid to play against the Lions. So it's a great time to be alive right now. As we move on to our next game here, the Bengals and the Ravens in a showdown that at the preseason, we were definitely all circling the calendar for, saying this was going to be a good game. And then the Bengals came out and didn't look so good through the first several weeks, but are they back on track now, Ben? We're seeing them in this spot here. They are the Sunday night game, and right now, Bengals getting 3 on the road in this one, 3.5 if you can find it around town. BetMGM and PointsBet.
Yeah, I'm willing to be wrong on this one, but from PFF's perspective, we still have the Bengals as a better team overall in basically all of our power rankings metric, better offense. I do think that Lamar Jackson obviously builds up the Ravens offense to a point where he is definitely like an MVP type candidate. But, outside of him and Mark Andrews, there's definitely concerns, I would say, for them actually being productive now. The Bengals front 4 has been pretty good from a pressure situation. So I do think they're going to be at least somewhat successful if they can kind of hold their gaps in keeping Lamar Jackson contained. And I do think that they have, enough going up against what I would consider to be one of the worst secondaries in the NFL right now in the Baltimore Ravens, really beat up. it seems like, the week 2 game against Miami kind of highlighted just how poor they're playing, especially on deep balls. I think that's, the one real strength from Cincinnati that we haven't really seen carry forward into 2022 yet. So I think we're going to see a few big chunk plays. I think they're, going to be right there at the end. So if I lose because the Ravens score a touchdown, I think to win this game outright, I'm definitely willing to take that, because I think in the majority of situations, this game's going to be settled by a field goal or less. So Bengals plus 3.5 Sunday night, I think is, probably my favorite spread that you can bet in week 5.
Matt, what are you thinking in this one?
Yeah, I like this. I got it at plus 3.5. Definitely like it at 3.5, much more than 3 because of the key number there. I have it projected for 2.25. And so I think to be able to get it through the 3, and you said that this was one of your favorite bets. I was gonna ask, this is one that I am really eyeing for different contests, where you have to pick 5, especially the contests have locked it in at plus 3.5. I think there's significant value there. And so this is one of the ones that I think I will probably have there. And you said earlier that PFF still, with everything that you put into your power ratings, you guys still have Cincinnati a little bit ahead of Baltimore. I have them at exactly the same spot in my power ratings. So yeah, I do think that, sure, home field advantage, but you have 2 divisional rivals. I think that counts for something. I think it should make the spread tighter. And so, yeah, I think if you can get this at 3 or above, you're getting pretty good value there, because I don't think this should be a field goal.
Guys, real quick, I want to talk to you about Sleeper. Sleeper is the fastest growing fantasy platform today with millions of players. You probably already have a fantasy league on there. My friends and I changed over this year, and I absolutely love it. It's a game-changing product unlike anything else in the industry. And now you can win on Sleeper by playing their new over-under game. It's super simple. First, in any sport, choose 2 or more players that you like and pick the over-under. For example, rushing yards in a football game or number of points in a basketball game. Then, choose the amount of money you want to enter into the contest. If you pick correctly, you can win anywhere from 2 times to over 20 times the money you put in. The main reason I'm excited about Over Under on Sleeper is that it's the only app where I can join my friends' contests and play together. It's got a built-in group chat where I can see and copy my group's picks with the tap of a button, along with Over Under integrated into the fantasy experience itself. It's insanely fun to ride it out together, so stop what you're doing and download Sleeper now to play their new Over Under game. Have fun with your friends and make some money. Use the promo code BettingPros when you sign up for a Sleeper account today, and Sleeper will automatically credit your account $100 to get you started. Terms and conditions apply. See sleeper.com for details. Now, how about this next game here? We got Carolina and San Francisco. Always a dicey proposition when you've got West going East, and SF coming off of their big Monday Night Football win over the Rams, -6.5 over Baker and the Panthers here. I mean, on the one hand, it's Matt Rule and the Panthers. On the other hand, it's Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers as road favorites. Matt, where are you going here? Because as much as I want to be against you on this one, I really don't think I can be.
I know. I hate myself for this. I mean, I love to bet against Kyle Shanahan anytime he's a favorite. It's one of the joys in my life. But I don't want to do that with Baker Mayfield or with Matt Rule or with their offensive coordinator, Ben McAdoo, for that matter. None of those 3 guys I want to have any part of. But I really do think that this is the right side here. Kyle Shanahan, 16-26-1 against the spread as a favorite. I mean, there's something about the way that he calls games. He's great as an underdog, horrible as a favorite. I think he just gets a little too conservative with the play calling when they're in certain game scripts, and that allows teams, pretty routinely to be able to get the spread. And for me, this comes down to the Panthers rush defense against the 49ers rush offense. Again, the Panthers, they're easy to make fun of because of everything they have going on with the coaching staff and on the offensive side of the ball. But, their defense is actually pretty good. They're top 12 against both the pass and the run in EPA. Their run defense especially, I think, should help them keep this contest close. The 49ers offense is number 6 in rush rate. Like, they want to run the ball. Their offense is heavily predicated on the running game, but they haven't been able to do it that well. They've been no better than number 20 in any of the key rushing efficiency metrics, whether it's EPA, success rate, DVOA, right? They're not running as well as they have previously. And, the 49ers running game, it's especially hampered with their injuries. They're without their number one running back. They're without one of their key backup running backs in Tyrion Davis-Price. They're without, obviously, their running quarterback in Trey Lance. They're also missing their starting left tackle, Trent Williams, who is easily the best offensive lineman that they have. And now they're probably going to be without backup left tackle, Colton McKivitz, who seems very certain to be missing this game with a knee injury. So you put all that together, and the thing that the 49ers want to do the best, I don't think they're really going to be able to do all that well in this game. This number was Panthers +3 in the look-ahead market just a week ago. 6.5 now. I don't think enough has changed from then to now to justify the line movement that we've seen. So I hate myself for doing it, but I will be betting the Panthers at 6.5.
Ben, what are you thinking here? Because you got me convinced, Matt.
I mean, I will say this. I do think the Panthers are the only correct side to bet on in this game. I just can't bring myself to do it. I think I've said,
Panthers are past.
Week 0, week 1, that they are the worst team in the NFL. I think when you factor in, the coaching situation, the quarterback situation, everything else, they're a complete cluster, it seems like, in so many situations. On the flip side of that, San Francisco has this weird, almost Kyle Shanahan type tax in the betting market, where it seems like they are kind of overvaluing him every single week. So I always find myself on the other side of San Francisco when they're playing it. And I think it's a similar, mindset with New England Patriots as well. I do think that, for some reason, the betting market does something with their coaching rankings or something else that kind of seems like those two teams are always overvalued compared to what I'm looking at. I'm not quite sure how they do that or what they're exactly looking at, but it's just a spot where I think they probably overvalue those two guys specifically. And so I'm going to find myself against San Francisco again. Like you said, I think the Trent Williams injury has kind of changed their offense, right? Forced George Kittle to kind of stay in and at least chip, if not, pass block to the point where they aren't really getting him out in as many routes as he should be. So that kind of forces, Deebo Samuel to be a pretty big playmaker after the catch. And that worked out well in their Los Angeles Rams game. But I don't really think it's a sustainable long-term effective offense. So if I was betting a game or if I was betting a side on this, I would definitely be on the Panthers, but I just can't bring myself to be on that side with Matt Rule anytime soon here. So I'm waiting for, the coaching firing chair or something to happen before I can really get on board with Carolina reviving anything for the 2022 season.
I'm sure there are plenty of Calcutta, Carolina owners who are very much banking on just that to get that first coach fired bonus. But this next game that we have up here, the Cardinals going up against the Eagles. We got the Eagles laying 5.5 right now on the road in Arizona against Cliff Kingsbury. Ben, I need you to tell me here, what is PFF saying? Are the birds real?
I mean, I think the Eagles very much are for real. I think if you're, trying to rank power rank teams right now, mainly based on 2022 performance, it's kind of the Bills, but even their injury situation, I would say knocks them down a little bit. And then it's really the Philadelphia Eagles. Heading into the season, I would say, 2 through 53 or whatever on Philadelphia's side were probably the best that you could find, right? Offensive line, best in the NFL. Their secondary, I would say, has played better than expected. I think Darius Slay has at points been, a shutdown type cornerback at the NFL level. It seems like he is, finally really doing that week in and week out. And I think that helps them immensely. And then, of course, Jalen Hurts, right? He was probably the one question mark for Philadelphia. I would say no matter how high your expectations were in 2022, he's probably exceeded those already just based on the fact that he's doing it by delivering the football downfield accurately to his playmakers, and they're, winning at the top of routes. And I do think that, there was probably a consideration that he could do it rushing the football a lot, taking off on some of these, broken down type plays. But the thing that's impressed me most is his ability and his willingness to continue looking downfield, even when he kind of breaks out of the pocket. And those have kind of been, some of their biggest chunk plays of the season. So I think if that continues, they're going to be a really hard out. But in saying all that, I am on the Cardinals side. Once again, I think they're a team that I've backed basically for the last 3 weeks. I don't really feel overly confident about that particular idea. But I think the Cardinals were kind of a team that was just much maligned, I would say, in the offseason. The Kyler Murray situation, does he study plays? Cliff Kingsbury, I think everyone at this point is pretty wise to how in some ways defective he is as a head coach. But I still think that with where this number has moved, home dog, all things considered, I would take Cardinals plus 5.5, and it is a spot that I'm betting, and probably locking into some of those pick'em contests as well.
Matt, what are you thinking here in this one? Are you going with the Eagles or are you taking Arizona? We do have 3 more weeks before the new Call of Duty.
I know it's a great bird matchup that we have here, and this line has actually moved to 5 at a couple of books, and so maybe there's still some lingering value there in the 5.5 that we see, but yeah, I mean, it's a disgusting slate for me, I think, in general, and I'm on a whole bunch of underdogs that I really don't want to be on, but I'm just kind of betting the numbers here, and I'm going with the Cardinals. Cliff Kingsbury, horrible as a head coach, horrible as a favorite, but pretty good as an underdog. 29-2 against the spread as an underdog, and on the money line, 16-14-1 as an underdog, which is good for a 43.6% return on investment. Like he has been good in this spot, and maybe it's not so much him. It's probably not so much him. It's probably just, hey, Kyler, go do something. But I do think in this game, even though it's a tough matchup, and I have been impressed by the Eagles defense, their secondary in particular, but they haven't been that good on rush defense. And, the Cardinals, again, something of a joke, their horizontal raid passing attack, but their running game has always been pretty good. I think it's just something of a function of how they play their offense. They force defenses to spread out. And the Eagles defense, even though they tried to make additions this offseason to bolster the run defense, defensive tackle Jordan Davis through the draft. They signed in free agency edge Hassan Reddick, linebacker Kazir White in free agency. They drafted linebacker Nakobe Dean. They've made moves to try to improve against the run. It still hasn't done anything. Right, the Cardinals, they have outperformed the Eagles defense in every key rushing efficiency metric. And, in none of these rushing efficiency metrics is the Eagles defense in the top 20. So if a home team can run the ball with success, it has a good chance to cover, whether it's a favorite or an underdog. And in the offseason market, we talked about this on the Tuesday show with Drew Densick. In the offseason market, this line was Cardinals minus 2.5. I mean, yes, they have underperformed expectations to open the year, and the Eagles have outperformed, but not enough for this line to move 8 points in just 4 games. So again, hate myself for doing it. I will be taking the Cardinals at plus 5.5.
The last game that we have here on the slate that we want to talk about right now, the autumn wind may be a pirate, but the Raiders head into Kansas City this weekend as 7-point dogs in this one. And oh boy, it's Monday Night Football in Kansas City. You got the Chiefs buzzing on all cylinders right now. I don't know. On the one side, you have the fact that the Raiders do always like to play this team tough. And you do have the fact that we have plenty of times before seeing the Chiefs look absolutely invincible one week and then come out and lay an egg the next. But Matt, where are you going in this one? Are you taking the Chiefs and laying the points, or are you riding with the Raiders?
Yeah, I will be very square, very fishy here. Just tell me it's Andy Reid playing a divisional opponent. Okay, I'm going with the Chiefs. Or tell me it's Patrick Mahomes in primetime. Okay, I will bet on that side. Andy Reid is 33-21-1 against the spread with the Chiefs against divisional opponents. Patrick Mahomes 14-9-1 against the spread in primetime. And for me, this really does come down to Patrick Mahomes going against a Raiders pass defense that I think is really bad. And for a team to cover a big spread, it needs to be able to move the ball through the air so that it can score a lot of points quickly. And obviously with Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs can do that. Even without Tyreek Hill, they're top 8 in all the key passing efficiency metrics this year. And the Raiders defense very much is not. This is one of the worst pass defense units in the league. In our Fantasy Pros unit power rankings, I see Mahomes as having a massive edge over the Raiders defense and the secondary in particular. I personally think Mahomes is still the best quarterback in the league, but as a staff, we have him ranked number 2. Fine. He's top 2. He's going against a defense that we have ranked number 25 and a secondary that we have ranked number 29. This is just a massive edge advantage that he has. And I think the Chiefs will be able to score at will. And I do not think that on the other side of this, the Raiders offense will be able to keep up enough against a Chiefs defense that isn't great, but is good enough.
I'm curious here. When you say he's behind, the number 2 quarterback on your rankings. That's behind Bailey Zappi, right?
Almost.
Almost.
Very close.
Very close. He's number 3. All right, Ben, what are you thinking in this game? What's going on underneath?
I would say, I'm pretty much with Matt, right? I think we don't really have a strong lean in one direction. I don't think this is even close to the same Raiders team that beat, the Chiefs outright, basically, was it last year or 2 years ago? Out of my years run
2 years ago, they nearly swept them.
Yeah. So it's, but it's, obviously things have turned over with the Raiders. I would say Josh McDaniels has been very lackluster to start. It seems like they're just not really utilizing Devontae Adams in a role that I would have even expected to kind of start the season. So with that in disarray a little bit, I think this is probably closer to like an 8-point differential based on PFF's power rankings numbers only. So if you fold in, a little bit of expectation for home field advantage as well, you can easily see why the Chiefs might be the correct side in this particular matchup. But yeah, what it comes down to with me and the Chiefs is if I knew when Andy Reid was motivated to call and like unveil his, arsenal of creative plays and everything else, I would bet them every single week. The problem is sometimes he seems to almost, not really willing or not really wanting to show or put his best plays on tape. But I do think that, in prime time, division rival, a spot where they can, kind of, bury the Las Vegas Raiders for all intents and purposes and have no shot of really winning or competing for a playoff spot, much less the AFC West crown. I think we're going to see probably the best version of the Kansas City Chiefs for one more week. So they're the only side I would bet. I've not bet them yet, but I think at -7 or whatever, it's Chiefs or bust in my opinion.
If I have to lay 7 points with any team in the league, especially this week, and this slate has a lot of those options, it's got to be the Chiefs. I mean, last week I was on the Raiders, but that was against Denver. This is a whole different story here. And we're talking about this Chiefs team last year. They outscored the Raiders 89-23 in both of their matchups last season. Yeah, the Raiders almost got the best of them the year before, winning 1 and losing 1 by 4. But this is just, and I texted Matt right after the Raider game last week, and I just said Chiefs by 40 this week. This is not going to be good for the Raiders in prime time. Now, guys, before we get you out of here, I want to ask at the end of every show, if you had to pick a team for your survivor pick this week, Chiefs do seem like an enticing option at home, but that is a divisional game. I was looking at Jacksonville against Houston, but Jacksonville has actually lost to Houston the last 4 times that they've played. But this is a very different Jags team here. Matt, what are you thinking? Would Jacksonville be your pick, or would you go somewhere else in the survivor?
Yeah, so I always forget that you're going to mention this. And so every time you start wrapping up the show,
rundown.
Yeah, I'm sure it is in the rundown. It would have to be something that I actually pay attention to. But yes, you are right. It is in the rundown. And so the team that immediately caught my eye was Jacksonville here, because you probably haven't used them yet. I mean, you want to pick on Houston when you have the opportunity. And some of these other teams, I think you probably want to save. So I think Jacksonville is a decent play here. That said, this is coming from a guy who died in Survivor in week 1. So don't listen to anything I have to say.
I have 2 picks, and I use one to go with like a chalkier team where I'm using up all the good teams early, and one where I've been taking a couple more risks. This feels like a good spot for Jacksonville on the risk, because when are you going to use them again? But Ben, what do you think? Do you have an alternative for us, or are you saying ride with the Jags?
I mean, I would say if you didn't use the Vikings last week, I think this week is probably one of the best options to take them. I don't have their full schedule in front of me, but 7.5-point favorites at home. I know you're backing Kirk Cousins after, the long travel and everything else, but I think they're a pretty good spot. I don't know if you're going to feel, any more comfortable picking them at any other point in time. So I would say the Vikings might be an ulterior option if you don't want to, use up one of the best teams in the NFL or the Jacksonville Jaguars at this stage.
Well, there we go. That's going to do it for us here today. Ben, where can people find you and all the great work you're doing around the internet and for PFF?
Yeah, definitely. So PFF does have a new mobile app that's still, I think, technically in beta or whatever. You can download that if you're an iPhone user within the continent or within the United States. I shouldn't say continental United States. So you can definitely check that out. Check me out at PFF_Ben Brown on Twitter. I'm also somewhat infrequently on TikTok, but trying to step my game up a little bit more. So you can follow me on there as well. Same username. And yeah, I'd love to connect with some users there, or people that listen to this podcast. If they have any feedback specifically about, PFF products or tools or anything you want to see, definitely hit me up in the DMs for sure.
Matt, that is going to do it for us one more time here. Ben Brown at PFF_Ben.
Ben Brown. There's way too many Bens out there for me to get the PFF_Ben moniker or whatever it is. So yeah, I'm rolling with the last name on that one as well. So.
And of course, you can find Matt on Twitter at MattFTheOracle. Catch me at TV at work. And don't forget, head on over to Betting Pros today at Betting Pros on any social media app that you want to find them. Actually, that's not true. They're Betting Pros NFL on everywhere but Twitter. But still, you know what I'm talking about here. Go to bettingpros.com/chat. Sign up for the Discord today. And guys, that's going to do it. Best of luck this weekend. And let's cash some tickets.